Republican lawmakers propose amendment that would ban gay marriage in Iowa. Nearly 8 years after the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage and several months after the Congress codified gay nuptials, Iowa legislators have proposed banning such unions in their state constitution. If the message becomes law, it would conflict with the Supreme Court's 2015 landmark decision to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide, Obergefell versus Hodges, and Congress' bipartisan passage of the Respect for Marriage Act late last year. Therefore, it is unclear that such a law could be enforceable, as federal law and the federal constitution take precedence over state law. The bill has 8 sponsors: Brad Sherman, Luana Stolberg, Mark Cisneros, Helena Hayes, Zach Dyken, Skylar Wheeler, Mark Thompson, and Thomas Gernhold. The resolution wants to add the following amendment to the state's constitution: marriage in accordance with the laws of nature and nature's God. The state of Iowa recognizes the definition of marriage to be the solemnized union between one human biological male and one human biological female. If the resolution is adopted, it would be published and referred to the next General Assembly for adoption. If adopted, voters would then vote on the amendment. State Representative Brad Sherman, one of the bill's 8 co-sponsors, said in an email of the joint resolution, quote, "Should the people of Iowa vote for such an amendment, laws would have to be adjusted to make laws fair for all," end quote. I don't think it'd be fair for all there, sir. Just saying that. They're coming for us. They're coming for us hard. Yes, maybe this bill won't pass, but just the essence of it, just the thought of it, just to get people riled up to vote against us being able to get married or keep our marriages are awful. And then that one line, I have to tell you folks, it was hard to read that line. That, saying that marriage in accordance with the laws of nature. Okay, like we're beneath nature, we're beneath God. And, and nature's God, a union between one human biological male and one human biological woman. It puts throw up in my mouth, just saying it,
Faye, I'm curious, your comment, okay, maybe this won't pass. Why do you think it won't pass?
Because I'm praying to God that it doesn't. I'm doing rain dances and all,
I'm betting Iowa does pass this. I bet the legislature, right. That's a different issue.
Yes.
I'm just saying, you say what you're going to say.
Yeah, so even if it does, Obergefell v. Hodges is very clear. And the law of the land is the law of the land, and it must be respected. And then we have the Respect for Marriage Act passed in Congress. And so these two tools will completely defeat this law. Should it pass, it will be defeated in court. But I don't know if it will pass.
But why put that in people's minds?
Well,
you know what I mean?
And when we were talking about what DeSantis is doing and these other, it's about fear. It's about fear and intimidation.
Yeah.
And I think it's unenforceable in a lot of ways. Like, for example, my marriage, I'm, for all intents and purposes, a man married to another man. But we fit the definition of a biologically born male and a biologically born female because I'm trans. And what are they going to do?
Can you imagine the challenge to the Supreme Court? And on just that lane, it's impossible to imagine how it would be. One of the things that I think is important to this story that you just did and what's going on in Iowa, these 8 legislators, why are they doing this? That's really the fundamental question that the LGBTQ community should be asking here. Why would they do that? We hear you say, you are absolutely crystal clear. There's not a chance in the world. In the current environment, even with the current environment, there's not a chance in the world that this would be enforceable. So why would they want to put on the books in Iowa that it is only in the nature of man under God between a man and a woman? Why would they want to do that? The only reason is to be able to justify their rejection of the law of the land. There's no other reason, because they have no hope of enforcing or accomplishing what they want to do. Now, to me, this is a really critically important point because we have watched. I'm a student of history. I know all of us are students of history. If you're LGBT, we pay attention to our past, starting with Stonewall in 1969. I'm a student of history, and we've seen this moment of what's happening in Iowa, what's happening in Tennessee, and what's happening in the governor's mansion of Florida. We've seen it in the past. I don't have to go to 1939, as we've talked about already in this show, to show that history. What I do is to go to the late 1950s when the Supreme Court was clear on the integration of our schools. And Governor George Wallace stands on the steps of Alabama's Capitol and says, "We will not integrate." And the President of the United States says, "You will integrate," because now it is not only the law of the land, it is the constitutional law of the land reaffirmed by the Supreme Court, which is exactly what has happened in this last 6 months in terms of respect for marriage, in terms of legislation, and in 2015 in the Supreme Court decision, exactly like integration of schools. So all these 8 are doing is being George Wallace standing on the steps of Alabama. When George Wallace did that, it led to a whole cadre of new allies of the Black community and civil rights to go, wow, there is a lot of wacko crazy in Alabama. What are we going to do about it? And over the next 8 years of George Wallace standing on those steps, it led to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's what you're doing in Iowa. You're propelling the absolute codification of gay rights in America. Thank you. Because that's what you're doing.
What's happening as well is in alignment with what's happening in Florida with gender identity. I think there's a clear message of there's only 2 binary. They're trying to bring it back to the binary and not respect preferred pronouns.
Yeah.
And I think this is just going to continue and continue and continue. But again, we will stand strong.
I love it.
And we will prevail. And we'll band and unite.
I know Faye's chomping to move on, but what's the difference in the observation that was just made of 2 trans or non-binary people sitting at the table saying, wait, we're rejecting what these 8 senators in Iowa are saying, and they're standing on the steps at the Capitol in Alabama saying we're not going to integrate. We're not going to accept you exist. In terms of marriage, it's settled law. And it's settled constitutional interpretation by the Supreme Court, which is exactly what happened in integration in schools. They're going to lose, and they're going to die on the hill that they're creating. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.